Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed lunch. I'm Thor, this is Bjørn. Yeah. And we will be giving a talk or presentation that we call a parasite for the civilian age. And it covers a personal project or hobby project that the two of us have been working on for the last year. We both work as interaction designers. I work at Top Design and Innovation in Malmö, and Bjørn works at Tellart in Amsterdam. And as part of our job, we get to work with emerging technologies and helping companies and organizations shape new solutions, devices, and so on. And a part of that interest and that work, we of course have a lot of thoughts or values that is sometimes a bit hard to get through in consultancy work. So that's why we have this need to take some after noon time to do some projects ourselves. And one result of that is a project we call Project Alias. And to explain a bit to you what it is this weird fungus-looking thing that sits on top of a Home Assistant, here at Google Home and Amazon Echo. And when you put this thing on top of your Home Assistant, you get a new level of agency over it, both in terms of customization, but also privacy. So in a way, Alias works as a communication gate or middleman between you and the Home Assistant. So when you're not using, for example, your Google Home, Alias will make sure that it cannot listen to you, if that was the case, because Alias feeds noise and overstimulates the microphones of the Google Home, so it can't listen. On the other hand, Alias can listen to you, and you can give it a name that you choose yourself. So if you want to call it Gandalf or Traspin or whatever you choose, you can say that word, and then Alias will whisper to the Home Assistant its originally wake-up word to wake it up. So one example of this could be Bjørn here saying, Alias, what time is it? It's 9:30. But when he said the original wake-up word, it won't answer, because Google did not hear him in the second time. So the reason why we built Alias was, as I said before, something about privacy and something about customization. So a lot of these devices are branded, and when you see in the commercials, as this new member of the family, and you speak to it in human language, and it understands you and helps you with your problems. And one thing we had a little problem with there was the way that you have to yell out a brand name, though it's your device, you bought it, it's in your home, it's a new member of the family, but you cannot choose what to call it. And we do that with other family members, right? If it's a new kid, or if it's a new dog, it's a part of the human ritual to give it a name. And we thought that should also be an option with these Home Assistants. And another part of what we wanted to mess a bit with was this fact that when you buy this device and put it in your home, you also place a microphone that is turned on for 24 hours a day, hooked up to some of the big companies in the world that, of course, earn money by advertising and data. So there's a lot of trust that is, of course, given to these companies in order you to have it, I would suppose. But then once in a while you see an article or many articles out there suddenly revealing that a bug happened, so a lot of data is suddenly available online, or that people from Google are listening to your conversations to make the algorithm better. And of course, it's maybe a good intention, but you didn't really know that was happening. Maybe you could think to it, but the fact that your data enters this black box, and you don't really know what happened with that data besides the service you get back, or something that we don't really like where it's going, looking into the future. So that was the other motivation to do so. So to go a bit back to where all this started, was back in actually 2017, where Bjørn was part of Google I.O. because he won the what's it called, AI experiments by Google.
Google AI experiments, yeah.
With another project, the Objectifier. You should check that out. And the prize for being part of this event was Google Home, and it was where Google also started to push out Home Assistants and AI as a consumer product. So that was how we got hands on a Google Home. And then instead of using it as you normally would, we started to think what we could do with it, if it was possible to hack it in any way. And of course it's not, because it's super closed systems. And we had these, I mean, of course we had turned it on and tried it, and we had this uncanny experiences with it, where it's suddenly you are sitting, a bunch of friends maybe having a dinner, and then suddenly your Google shouts out, "Oh, I didn't quite get that." I'm like, "Oh, okay, so you were listening the last 20 seconds, nice." I think these kind of small encounters and frustrations was what made us think about what can we do with it, or especially you were thinking that. And around the same time, I was doing some of my own experiments with voice and how could make small experiments to give people the possibility to train voice commands that they could come up with themselves. And when we started to merge these two minds and thinkings is how we came up with the concept of Alias, or the solution. But we didn't really want to call it a solution there. We wanted to tell a narrative around it, or maybe try to communicate some of the thoughts and values that we have walked around with in all this time.
Yeah, so there's a lot in here you can already hear that we want to communicate. I mean, there's so much passion, and how do we tell that narrative especially coming from sort of speculative design, where we are bridging realism and almost a gag, right? It's a hack. It's something that we want to put out there and be inspiring. And with many of our projects, we look for inspiration in nature. We like to look for more humanistic values that we can bring in to these very tech and hard solutions. So we found it in cordyceps. If you don't know it, it's also called the zombie ant. It's quite creepy when you get into it. It's basically this fungus parasite that takes over the ant or many insects, and it grows from within and it takes over. It completely steers the ant towards the food source. This ant has been led up to a tree and then it dies. But there's a quite beautiful story when you zoom out, when you look at it more holistically and you see the ecosystem in the rainforest, because the reason why some species get more attacked than others is because they get too powerful. They have too much area or too much food source. They just, the power between weak and strong is unbalanced. So increasingly they get more infected. Thus, the cordyceps makes a balance in the ecosystem. And we thought that was a quite beautiful analogy, especially if you think perhaps the ant is a big company, something we see every day taking a lot of control in our everyday behavior without us knowing. So that was really the inspiration, and how could we bring these ideas and nature back in? So we started looking at viruses, different bacteria, fungi. This is slime mold, really interesting material that you can actually grow. You just give it some food and it's dispersed out. Could we 3D print it? Could we use here real mushrooms? So we went out in a real forest. This is actually from Germany. Turns out they're illegal to pick, so don't do that. Yeah, sponges, really looking into natural material. And I think that contrast between that Google Home or Alexa, which is quite rigid, we could have a more natural feel. So here, mycelium, which is a coffee grind mixed with fungi spores that you can actually mold. So here we used the Google Home as a mold, and we had a little space for electronics that we could put in. And then we just waited. We just grow it. Turns out it wasn't super practical, because the sound is also absorbed a lot. It did make for a good risotto, and a good picture, of course. Conceptually, we think this is the best photo, but we couldn't stop here. The next one, we started looking at 3D printing, and this really came from the idea of open it up as well. We wanted this to share and have people to reproduce it. So we played a lot with these algorithms, AI algorithms that can generate these kind of very natural feel systems that does have a relationship to those fungi and spores that we were looking at earlier. This filament is made of wood, which is quite interesting. So people could also choose their own growing material as well. So this is the final product, as you saw in the beginning. It's a 3D printed shell. And here you get a bit of look into the guts of it. It's a small Raspberry Pi device, so it has a little computer, and then has 2 speakers. And these are the speakers that interact with the microphones of the Google Home, actually communicating to it and infecting it, let's say. And that's just slits on top. And I say infect because, of course, there's a visual inspiration and a design language we created, but there's also the wording we use. In every article you see and the way we talk about it, we very much try to use these words that come from this universe, just to really emphasize that world and the picture we're trying to paint. So how it works, there's some computer, some speakers, there's a little microphone, and everything here was chosen deliberately to be off the shelf. They're all things you can buy, probably in Conrad, Baumarkt. And oh yeah, so here you can see the logic. It's rather simple. So as Thor mentioned, when you say Gandalf, and it's the one you have trained, they will wake up the Google Home or Alexa, and then you're allowed to speak to them. If you don't say anything or the name you spoke is not correct, they will just keep playing noise. So that's the sad life of Google Home. It's just here's a little snippet of that sound, if it works. No? So as you can see here, it's not just noise, there's some kind of communication in the background, and that was actually helping a lot to have just people speaking, like a crowded room, making it really confused. And all the frequencies are put in the human range, so it's between the 80 to 120 hertz, which is what Google also listens to. And there was a lot of just try and error back and forth with what sound works the best. For this interface, we chose an app. It's important to know that everything is local. So the computer inside processes everything local, and the app also connects to a local network, because that was quite important for us. It never leaves the device. And the interaction it's rather simple. Since it's just one word you have to train, you just have one button. You press it, and you will just repeat the word that you wanted to know. You can sort of see the training process and get some feedback by trying it and see if it works, and just keep adding words until it gets really good. And that also helps people who are perhaps finding difficulty talking to Alias, because you have a speech impairment, or I don't know, you have a very strong accent. So that is something that really helped. And you can even do sounds. Doesn't need to be a word. You could have a bell, fart, anything you like. You could have your dog speak to Google Home, which is an interesting side conversation. So as I mentioned, it was important to have it open source, and we believe a lot in democratizing AI and bringing it out to everyone. And as you can already see, this was much more than a product. It's a story, it's a narrative, and it's a symbol that we wanted to convey. And since we were not super interested in marketing this, we wanted to give it out and see what people do with it and develop it further, because we are not computer scientists, although we think we learned a lot. There are certainly people who can improve this product a lot and help us make this better. So that has been a nice journey since we released it, of that back and forth conversation. So we're going to show you a little video, and this is actually just a bunch of friends of ours that we gave it into their home, and we just let them try it out and see what names they come up with and have fun with it. So I'll just play that.
What's this thing called again?
An alias.
Alias, oh yeah. What would I like to call my alias?
So, I'm gonna rename you Doris. Doris.
Okay, Google. Can I change your name?
Sorry, my name is a code you can't break.
APT. APT.
Now it's the training. Doris?
It was
It's
already.
working.
Yeah.
Hello, Doris?
Hello.
Marvin, are you there?
I'm here. What can I do for you?
It works.
Hey, Milkshake. Find a lentil salad recipe.
Okay, I've got a recipe called Sexy Lentil Salad from Recipe Chinese. This recipe serves 4 and takes about...
When I put this on, it won't listen to me. Okay, Google. Can I change your name?
APT. Can you read me a book?
It looks like there aren't any audiobooks.
Hey, ET. That was what? Where are we?
Where are we by not waving? Sure. Playing on Spotify.
Hey, PT. Stop.
Marvin, what is the answer to life, the universe, and everything?
The answer to life, the universe, and everything is 42.
Doris, where is Nemo?
Right now in Vesper Township, United States, it's -6 degrees Celsius with partly cloudy skies. Today's forecast has partly sunny weather.
To set up your alias, open the app and think of a name or even sound you want to activate your smart device with. Simply hold record while saying the new name 4 times. Alias. 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 Now press train and wait a few seconds while Alias is learning its new name. Okay. Alias, what time is it?
8:39.
Okay, Google, what time is it? You see, Alias has paralyzed your device and only allows it to listen when you use its new name. What would you call it?
Thanks. So after we made this video and kind of made it open to the world what we had been working on, this happened. There was a lot of attention around it. It got picked up. We did a lot of interviews, and all that was super fun and interesting to do. But one of the most rewarding things was see the amount of comments and discussions that was generated in each comment section of these articles or forums, and seeing how the discussions first were things like, oh, why would you put a giant bird shit on top of your Home Assistant? Or, oh, I would really like this. Or, why would you? Because they're not listening to you. And all these different perspectives that kind of just got more and more about whenever Home Assistants are listening or not when you're not using them. And we saw how Alias was facilitating these discussions. And it was so interesting to see that and to actually experience that a lot of people have something to share or some strong opinions around this. So last month we went to Ars Electronica to receive the STARTS prize for artistic exploration, and we also got to exhibit Alias there. And for us, for me, Bjørn, I think this was the ultimate acknowledgement of what we tried to achieve in the beginning was understood. that we are trying to mix the artistic practice with design to make something that is real, but it's not really about the solution. So what is it really about then? And this is the where the thoughts become big and so on. But what we have been talking about is like we get this question a lot, like, okay, do you think that the home assistants are listening to you when you're not using them? And well, none of me and Bjørn really have one or use one, and we also kind of found out that it's maybe not the question that we are interested in. What we are interested in is more this power relation that we see, that it's not really up to you to make that choice if it's listening or not. It's you just have to trust that you're not doing it. But at the same time, looking at how we deal with webcams, I guess most of us have a piece of tape or something in front of a webcam that makes sure that we are not getting recorded without us knowing. And of course, that might not really, I mean, maybe it happens to, I don't know how many it is, but probably not the majority of us. But still we hear the story where it have happened, and the fact that we can take an action and get a physical proof that it will not happen, and we take over the control of that situation, is what we feel is missing for this whole voice, new voice interaction paradigm that we are entering. And we think it is about this transparency and opening up the black box and try to care more about this relation of trust that needs to be more strong and exist if we are continuing into a future where we are speaking with everything around us, not only humans.
Yeah, and I think raising these questions now, I think having these discussions now and having these discussions today is what is really important for how this technology will keep continuing, because tomorrow, 5 years, this will become a norm, and this is how we want it to be. And I think we question also the whole smart home devices, right? Is this actually smart? Is this the type of smart we want? Do we want to say Google Home all the time? We think switching the roles and seeing the opportunity to invite the customers and the users to actually be part of the design process can be really powerful when you think about the interaction of the product down the line. Because of course the patterns and the way we interact with these products are very streamlined and determined by somebody in Silicon Valley. So why not open up for certain needs or special wishes that you might have for a product? And we see that potential in AI. The machine learning is enabling us to actually communicate with a computer. We don't longer need to learn code to be able to adapt technology. We can actually talk to it, and it can adapt to us, and it can listen. And that really switches the perception of how we talk to devices around us. And I think that is something to embrace. And yeah, this is a good example of how we could start doing that.
Yeah, so I think last thing to say is build your own.
Yeah.
Thanks.